Медіа-центрі, і вже зараз про антикорупційний пакет президента.
On anti-corruption package of the president and the government, which was passed by the president and the Verkhovna Rada by the in the first reading, we'll be talking to Viktor Chumak, member of the parliament. Good afternoon. I'm sorry for looking not official because I did not take my jacket. I came back from the constituency. What we'll be talking about, unfortunately, we don't have many people, but it's an important topic. When yesterday I heard some comments on these laws passed, which are taken out of the context, these comments create some negative situation around the package of legislation which was passed yesterday. There were 5 draft laws approved yesterday. Altogether, they cannot be considered separately, but altogether they create absolutely different system of preventing and combating corruption. The system that existed was not efficient and it was corrupt itself. To change today's system and to try to make it fit the challenges which we have is impossible. Counteract corruption in the existing system when there are so many bodies which are involved in the combating corruption. The governmental ombudsman on combating corruption, different committees, the Security Service of Ukraine, Monopoly Committee. In the system that we have today is impossible. That is an attempt. I cannot say that that is some fantastic event, but that is a revolutionary event in the system of combating corruption. I cannot say that that is absolutely Ukrainian know-how. There's nothing new. These are the standards which the world and Europe uses. We did not have that in Ukraine before. We lived according to our know-how in the past. But it was just to show off that someone is combating corruption. It was just to disguise the corrupt activities and we have the system which is similar to the systems in Poland and Hungary, in Czech Republic, and Baltic states. We're creating the same system. Why do we have this package? For the system to operate, we need the package of laws. That is the requirement of all the international donors, and that is creating a specialized body on combating the corruption of senior civil servants. That is Anti-Corruption Bureau, which will have the authority to conduct investigatory activities, search and investigatory activities against the persons who were detained for corruption crimes and who are senior civil servants. What are senior civil servants? These are the civil servants of the first and second categories, the ministers, deputy ministers, directors of departments, heads of oblast state administrations, politicians, MPs, members of the regional level councils, the law enforcement heads, the head of the regional security service, the regional Ministry of Interior bodies, and the judges, the heads of the courts. So these are the subjects which fall under this Anti-Corruption Bureau. They will not be fighting against corruption in hospitals, in the educational institutions. They will be investigating the crimes among senior civil servants or if it is not a senior civil servant, but the sum of the bribe is more than 600,000 hryvnias, then such person also falls under this anti-corruption bureau. Why I believe that this National Anti-Corruption Bureau is so important. How is it different from the existing bodies? We had the prosecutor's office, the security service who were combating corruption. What will be the difference? First of all, the composition. Some people say, can you move there from the Ministry of Interior, from the Security Service of Ukraine? No, you cannot make a healthy organism, a healthy body, and immediately infect it by the virus of corruption from old bodies. So it will be prohibited to hire those people who used to work in the General Prosecutor's Office and Tax Militia and Security Service of Ukraine in the system of the interior. Who will then come? The investigators who are not related to corruption, but who have the skills of investigatory activity, and absolutely new people. They will be trained specially. We do not have special methodology for investigating the crime of senior civil servants. So these people are to be trained in the best European centers. And while we were working on this draft law, I had meetings with all the ambassadors of European countries, with representatives of European Commission, donors, the World Bank, who are ready to provide technical, financial, material assistance for training such people in the best specialized training centers in Europe and in the US. We will have an opportunity to train them according to the best European standards. These people who will be hired to this body, these are people who will have a very serious competition and psychophysical diagnostics, which will include the lie detector test. Besides, people who will work there, they will have once every half a year have the lie detector test. Also, those people who go there have to sign an agreement with the head of the body that against them the inspection whether the person is integral can be conducted. Such person could be offered a big bribe, but this will not be the grounds for criminal case. It will be the grounds to dismiss such person from this body. When people go there, go to work there, and there will be 300 of them, the total will be 700. Some of them will work in Kiev and some in 7 regional offices, not 26 in each oblast that will be subordinate to some regional prosecutors' offices. There will be just 7 of them, and they will not be located in regional centers, so that there are no corruption connections between different law enforcement bodies and them. They will be motivated. They will know that they go to this body to combat the corruption at high level of senior service. There's no other body that could control the investigation. That's the General Prosecutor's Office, so they will be controlled by them. They will be under the pressure of the public. There will be the Council of Public Control, which will have quite extensive powers, and they will be able to conduct an independent audit of this body involving the international experts, and they will be motivated by very high salaries. I mean, talking about Ukraine, they will have very high salaries. The lowest one will be 18,000 hryvnias. These are not the salaries of militiamen or prosecutors. There will be just 300 of them or 700. It's like a legend that the FBI started from 25 investigators. In the U.S., in the 20s, Google started from 25 investigators, but they had similar guarantees, the guarantees of independence. And this bureau has to have very high guarantees of independence, independence from political influence, and that's guaranteed because the head of the bureau will not be appointed by one body, executive body. It will be
He will be appointed by the recommendation by the commission that will be composed of 9 people, 3 from the president, 3 from the parliament, and 3 from the government, and they are not public officials. They are public activists, and there's a demand for them, a request to have high authority and high moral status in the society. So if there's some Ivan Sidorenko there and we don't know him, then he doesn't have a high moral authority in the society. But if there's a man Gluzman or Evgen Zakharov or Brukhovetsky, then this is normal. We know them. They have a respective moral authority in the society, or some well-known human rights activist or a journalist, and live on air they hold the contest for the director of the bureau. There shouldn't be any closed sitting. By the final sitting, where they select one person from 3 candidates, is on air with the national television channels and on the internet. There they talk to the 3 candidates, and the entire Ukraine can see whom they selected. So the issue of the selection of the manager of this bureau will be based on the high moral authority of 9 people who are known to the entire country. This is much more important than the election to the parliament or the selection of the cabinet of ministers or even the election of the president, because I think that Zakharov or Brukhovetsky or Gluzman or people like them will not risk their authority. They will select the most worthy, the worthiest person, and this is the person who will be appointed for 7 years without the right to be appointed for another term. But this person won't be it won't be possible to remove this person for political reasons. There's no reason to remove them because the president or the parliament or the government do not trust them. Well, they can resign, of course, and they can get ill, and, well, they can die, or they are caught for some crime, and then the court removes them. So the body, the authority gets quite a high degree of independence, financial, organizational, and political. They start to work according to absolutely different standards, guaranteed by these 3 kinds of independence, but the body itself is nothing if the system is not built. They cannot work in a white smoking, but while everybody is in some rags. That's why the National Anti-Corruption Commission is being created by the Cabinet of Ministers, composed of 5 people who are selected from the public and by the public, and all the commissioners who will take decisions about the activity of the state service. They will have equal rights apart from the chair, who will sign the documents, of course. But all the functions will be similar. They can investigate all the tax declarations. No, not the tax, but about income declarations. they now submit them once a year to somebody, and we don't see them. But in this commission, there's a unified state register of declarations of the entire state service. And it is online. It is online. You click and you see how much Chumak has earned, or Yatsenyuk, what do they have as property. And this commission also provides for economic and arithmetic control of the incomes and expenditures. What have you bought over a year, and if the amount that you paid for your purchases, if you spent more than, let's say, 60,000 hryvnia, then you have to declare it. You remember the scandal with the Polish minister, the Minister for Transportation, who displayed an undeclared watch on his arm, and he was threatened with 3 to 5 years of imprisonment. So false declaration is a crime. And this has been introduced into our criminal code. So this commission executes logical and arithmetic control. So what is logic, what is arithmetics? If the state official gets 300,000 hryvnia a year, this is normal. But if they acquire a property or a car for $300,000, then there's no logic. Because, 300,000 hryvnia and $300,000 is not logical. And then the investigation starts. Where did you get this money? Prove that this is your property. Maybe it was donated by your grandmother from Argentina. Then show us the grandmother. If you won in the lottery, show us the ticket. And if you cannot prove anything, then the case goes to the Anti-Corruption Bureau, and there they launch a case according to the article from the law on illegal enrichment, and this is a crime for a person who holds a responsible office. And then the criminal proceeding is launched in criminal prosecution. So we have created a punitive body that will work with criminal cases, and the preventive body, which will examine all this. They will also investigate the style of their lives. Can, for instance, a top official in law enforcement bodies own a property that costs $10 million? Well, there's a question, where have you got it? And all these issues will be monitored by this commission. The same commission will also monitor the conflict of interests, like close relatives could not work when they are your immediate subordinates. Then a top official cannot adopt decisions in which the friends or relatives are interested. They have to report to their superior and either transfer this issue to another top official or abstain from. And this is what the National Commission will do. They won't have law enforcement functions. They may launch a case, they may apply administrative measures, because, of course, there are some corruption breaches of laws that pertain to administrative law, like you're late with your declaration, then you get fines. But if you do not file your declaration at all, this is a criminal case. This declaration will also pertain not only to your bank accounts, but also to your cash that you store at home under the mattress, and the valuables that you or your wife have, and your children, if your children live with you, and your grandmother, if she lives with you. and your closest friends, if they are connected to you. You will have to declare this as well. So there's a total control on the style of life of our officials. This is another link in the chain. I'm talking about the chain here and the system. These are not just separate cases. There's a system. The next link in the chain is that you are obliged to register in the Ukrainian registers the beneficiaries of the final profit of the business in Ukraine. You cannot have unknown offshore enterprises now. All the offshore companies must show in the Ukrainian legislation, if they want to work within the Ukrainian legislative field and the Ukrainian system of economic connections, you have to show your end beneficiaries, not a teacher of yoga from Cyprus, not a lawyer from Liechtenstein, but the end beneficiary of the company. So it won't happen like the minister now signs a tender where some company is the beneficiary and he is the end beneficiary of this company. If someone does not file this register, then they are to be prosecuted. So we will know the end beneficiaries of companies that will take part in tenders. And this next link is the draft law opens the register of property, the register of the rights to own property, including your flats. But this is good. The critical data about you, like identification code or the passport number, won't be held there, but there will be a number of the house, the number of the flat, and the surname who owns the property. So any embezzlement scheme won't be able to happen. Everyone can look online who owns the flat. And the owner can also see who displayed interest in her or his flat. Everyone who looked at this flat will be in the history of visits on this page. Also, you can see the entire story about legal movements of this flat. Everything will be there. So this precludes any schemes to take the flat from you. But there will be every enterprise, every property, not only our flats, but castles and the mansions built by people with a great wealth. We will know where there are homes of oligarchs, who owns them, including top officials. And if the Minister or Prosecutor General lives in a mansion next to the city, we will know this and we will be able to ask them. Let's compare arithmetics to logic and let's compare them. This is the next link in the system that is being built. And the last link of the system is sentencing in absence of a person who is investigated under criminal case or for abetting in terrorism. You know, most of them can be, you cannot condemn someone in absence apart from people who really hide from investigation in court for real serious crimes. And these crimes are terrorism and corruption. Why this is important? Because you know that today Yanukovych, Ptoshonka, Azarov, Zakharchenko, and who else? Lucas, Portnov, quite a number of people who are being searched for are abroad, and great their great properties are in Ukraine, and you cannot arrest this property or assets because we cannot launch investigation against them. But now this will be possible. This is not Ukrainian know-how. This is a European procedure of epicenter investigation, when in principle a person who is being accused in a very serious crime, they are absent and they are hiding from court, but the court goes along all the necessary lines. There's a lawyer, there are proxies, there are witnesses, they hold all the necessary forensics and examinations. There's an open regime of the court, no closed sessions or hearings. And the only difference is that there's no person who is accused. But according to in absentia procedure, if this person is condemned, sentenced, then we can arrest their property and assets. Even before we have introduced some very serious changes about the responsibility for crimes, the possibility of special confiscation for corruption crimes, because special confiscation means that you can confiscate not only the property that they own personally, but the property or assets that they bought or acquired and transferred to other people. So, for instance, if they get something as a present for a tender, and then they give this to their lover, this may be a mansion or a Bentley or something like this, those people who get such presents cannot be held responsible. But according to the criminal code, as a result of special confiscation through court, this property or asset can be confiscated as something acquired illegally or criminally. So I would ask you, especially those who write or talk about this, when you are taking interviews from different experts, from seasoned ones to young ones, it is important to see, to look, and to make sure that you cannot snatch something from the context of the general system of the counteraction to corruption. Any of these laws separately, one law, does not cost anything, is not worth anything. They are worth something in a huge package that we have adopted, and another law is about changes on banks and bank activity, and all the accounts of so-called politically important persons, PIPs, are subject to constant monitoring, and all their transactions are also monitored. All this together creates a system of prevention of corruption. I think I have talked rather reasonably. Any questions?
Now people are discussing that. We have two reasons to congratulate you with your professional holiday and with approving the laws. 4 laws were approved in the first reading and 1 in the second reading. I believe that when the Speaker of the Parliament and the President sign 1 law, this will become efficient already, but 4 others were approved in the first reading, and they have to be put for voting next Tuesday on the 14th of October, and we hope that they will be supported on the 14th of October. We'll do everything in the committee. I do fear that we may receive too many amendments, and usually what they do to kill a law is to provide 800 amendments, and I warned all the members of the committee. I said, let's get together on Monday, and we will not leave this meeting until we finish analyzing the project. And I believe that all people who work at the committee, they are very responsible, and they will do that. Any questions? First of all, I would like to thank for coming here and telling us very clearly about these draft laws. Also, I would like to invite you tomorrow to a round table, which we will have here, and we'll be talking about these draft laws, because it's very important now to have attention of mass media. I would like to see you here tomorrow so that we can discuss it. And my question is, you mentioned that the salaries of those who will work in the Bureau will be quite big. But first of all, we have the state budget. Is this amount of money reserved in the state budget? And what about additional security measures for these people? Will they be funded? Because these people may risk their lives. Thank you for this question. I had to tell about that myself. I would like to say there will be not a single additional, there's no need to attract any additional kopic from the budget to these functions, because we get the functions together with the resources from different bodies, like the security service, prosecutor's office, and others, because they reduce the numbers of positions there, and there are not 300 of them, there are thousands of them. And because we reduce those numbers of positions in these bodies, we will be able to finance this bureau, and this will be within the programs, within the budget, which is for combating corruption. As to protection, there will be a special division in this bureau which will be protecting not just people who work in the bureau, but even those who participate in the judicial proceedings, because the second law on preventing corruption has a special section on protection of persons who inform about corruption crimes. In the West, it's called the protection of whistleblowers. Those who give information, because the information could be given anonymously. We prohibit to consider anonymous information, with the exception of information about corruption. But this information should clearly state the fact of corruption act. It cannot be just written that Chumak is corruptionist, but the fact that Chumak or Ivanova took on the 13th of October some bribe for some functions, for something, this has to be considered, even if such a paper is not signed. And such people are to be protected by the law and physically. Who will be working in the bureau? What should be the professional qualities of such a person? The first professional quality is honesty. First of all, I would like to say that's not even moral, it's professional quality, honesty. I do hope that 700 people in the country, we do have 700 honest people in the country. If we don't have them, then we are a poor country. But I hope that we are a rich country, and we have 700 people which have this quality, who are honest. Then people should have certain educational background. They need to have either legal or economic educational background. But I believe just the higher education is enough, because the person has some set of knowledge. But to learn the methodology of investigation is not that complicated. For an intelligent person, that's not difficult to learn the special methodologies, especially if such methods are provided to such person during the training. I believe there will be a big line of such people. People will be queuing up. The people will be standing in line from Kherson to Uzhgorod. But I also believe that this will allow us to select high-quality people. This will be the main task, to have high-quality people there. Not everyone. Okay, let's take this. This one is from militia, this one is from somewhere else, but very seriously select them, even if it takes 1 or 2 months. We can afford it, but we shouldn't make mistakes here. Who will be selecting? First, the head will be appointed, then the head will appoint the deputies on the same basis via the competition, via the lie detector, and only after that all the deputies will be selecting the special commission which will be hiring other people. You described almost ideal picture that the laws are passed, that they are implemented, and everything's fine. But you named the countries where this was happening. Ukraine is somewhat different from other countries. We have oligarchs. What do we do with this corruption, which is political corruption? Will there be any laws to, well, not calm down, but to neutralize the oligarchs, who in fact are not the national bourgeoisie of Ukraine? They're not oriented towards Ukraine. One oligarch demonstrated himself to be nationally oriented, maybe in a certain situation, but at least he demonstrated it. I am not promoting oligarchs. But what I want to say, the issue of political corruption can be treated differently. That's the next thing we need to create, but we will not be able to do it now. That's treated differently, and that's called transparency of financing political parties and new election system. And these are different steps. These are the first draft laws which will be submitted by me also. I am drafting such laws together with the activists who are activists tomorrow, but tomorrow they will be the members of parliament. It's on transparent financing of political parties, not just in the period of election campaign, but permanent transparency of financing political parties. Election campaign is just a stage of financing political parties, which should be very transparent. The contributions from physical and legal entities are to be limited. There should be certain ceiling set up, the ceiling for contribution. And the election system is to be changed. Now the election system is not competitive. It doesn't have any competition because you can buy voters at the constituencies. Thank you for invitation. I cannot be here tomorrow because I am the candidate from the majoritarian constituency, and I'm all the time there. I need to meet with people. I have some meetings planned for tomorrow. And with that, I believe that's the fairest system. For example, in my constituency, we have 18 nominees who are running. Let's imagine the case. Each one of them, or 17 of them, get 6%. We get 92% votes. And then the 18th one will get 8% of votes and will win the elections. And 92% will go into the waste paper basket. They do not participate. They do not support that candidate. That it is the representation of the majoritarian system. I do not want to talk about closed party lists because that's like a cat in a sack. But if we open the election system, if we have open political lists of political parties, and the nominee is to be related to the place where he or she lives and the party that nominates such a person, that's difficult, but we'll introduce such draft law immediately, and we will demand that such draft law is to be voted at the first session, because later no one will vote for it, and we'll request people to come to the building of the parliament with tomatoes or with whatever, so that the voting gives good results. But I do have hopes that the next parliament will be voting without tomatoes and without tires and without the barrels. Then there's a provision on lobbying. We don't have this system of lobbying or the law on lobbying in Ukraine. Yeah, that is the norm. There should be a special law on lobbying passed. The lobbying should become business, but it should be open and transparent business. The companies, which will be professional lobbyists like all over the world, they will be lobbying concepts, draft laws, initiatives. But they will report openly. They will report for who they get money from and for the money they pay as taxes. And they will report on who of the politicians they request to lobby this or that process. Because now our main lobbyists are members of parliament, but they are shadow lobbyists. So all issues are related to lobbying are in the shadow, and there are money paid in the parliament for lobbying. You can imagine there's money that are used for lobbying certain processes. There is a certain party, before the elections I will not promote it, which never voted for anything unless they received money. Small party, but they were a big partner of a big party. Could you please say, from your personal experience, when was the last time when you paid or received a bribe? Does this draft law, do these laws guarantee that that experience will not be punished? That's a good question. I will not tell you. You offer me to say when I received or when I gave the bribe. I have never received, I have never given a bribe. But first I served, I was a lawyer, and that's where bribes were not given. There's nothing to pay for that position. No one would give me a bribe. Why should you pay for signing some concept, for signing some document, for writing some analysis? Just the salary. Everyone considered that the salary that I was receiving is enough. And I agreed with that. So I did not demand anything from anyone. I never gave bribes because children studied well. There was no, again, sense to give money for children. Everyone was healthy. I did not have to pay at the hospitals, and I was not trying to resolve any issues for bribes. So I don't have good experience in bribing. As to the law, not a single law guarantees that no one will get bribes or give bribes. to avoid it, we need to have a certain system of detention from corruption, of not allowing prevention corruption actions, and also there should be the system of moral values. The system of prevention without the system of moral values would not operate. At least it will allow moral values to grow. I absolutely do not think that after all these laws are passed, in half a year we will live in Switzerland, where we will have the same level of corruption as in Switzerland or Finland. I have no illusions about that. If, according to Transparency International, we manage to go up to index 3 from 2.4 today, next year, then I believe this will be a great success for our country. If we manage to come out of the scale, which is shame for the nation, to the scale, high level of corruption, I will believe that's a great success for the country, and we will all feel it. We will feel it immediately. Because these are the countries like Georgia, Bulgaria, Romania, approximately will be getting closer to these countries who are corrupt, even like Albania. If we get to that level, I will believe that's a great success, because that's work. We cannot say that I know how to overcome corruption. As one leader of political party said at one of the shows, I do not know how to combat corruption, how to defeat it. I know what to do for the level of corruption to be lower. But how to overcome it? Well, no one. They do not know how to do it in Singapore, in Philippines, in Switzerland, and in Finland. They don't know how to defeat corruption. And the last question. So I would like to ask the question. There were some critical comments made related to the laws, but also to the system. People say, okay, we have laws, but our system of courts is corrupt. And the second comment was that we still have strong regulations for the business, and that believe that that is the reason for corruption. The laws combat the consequences, but not the reasons.
Yes, that's right. There are some reasonable overtones in what you said, because the regulation of the business is also one of the links in this chain, deregulation of the business. And we have the draft law already about the lessening of the number of checkups and normative regulations. I think that this law will be passed because it's already passed in the first reading. It will just be the responsibility of the next convocation. Oksana Prodan is a co-author of this draft law, and several other UDAR MPs. But the other thing that you're mentioning, the court system, is very serious issue. This is absolutely correct, because the court system is one of the main points that we should aim our efforts at. We will have to very soon write absolutely new rules of the existence and life of the judges, because at the moment this is a separate case that you cannot penetrate, and they are all linked. But the situation now is that Prosecutor General's office is monitoring this case, and which is in itself something like this court system. So this anti-corruption system acquires a function of a monitor and sanitary worker for this court system. But then you still have to go to judges. And the question here is, if in the same law there's a provision about a special prosecutor to accuse top officials, the person who will work only on corruption cases and will face huge, high demands as well. So at the moment, to create special anti-corruption courts that there are in the Balkans or Baltics, the Constitution forbids us to create special courts. Yes, you can create specialized courts, but not special courts, and it is hard to leave this environment. I think that this is our next task or step, but in any case, an independent organization will conduct the investigation, not the prosecutors who work with the same judges. That's it. I don't say this is an ideal option. I know that there are problems, but when you know the problem, then you know how to overcome them. Thank you very much, Mr. Chumak, for your expert assessment. He is the head of the Parliamentary Committee for Fighting Corruption and Organized Crime. Thank